Hi, Thomas. Thank you again for being with me here today. Actually, this is a mentors edition, so it's special. For those who don't know Thomas, he's actually a wise mentor, apart from being a practice owner and being in his own practice. So we wanted to talk about that because before being a mentor, he started as a member, just like every other members, but became someone special to our team. So I wanted to go through that story basically.
Sure.
Let's start from the beginning if you are happy to do it. Some backstory. When did the business start? Where did the business start? How did it start?
Well, the firm started 1993, so roughly about 31 years ago. It started with my parents. They have a bit of an interesting backstory. They immigrated from Laos. They were actually in a refugee camp for about 6 or 9 years of their life. So
Oh.
the reason for that was because they were just holding out for Australia. You could go to America, you could go to France, but they waited in that refugee camp for Australia. And I guess we all have to thank Grandpa for making the right choice. But that brought a lot of challenges. They couldn't speak English. They were put into like year 11 and 12. But like most stories of immigrants, they wanted to make their way through in Australia. And with a lot of help and support, they studied accounting. And despite not knowing much English, they just had to memorize textbooks and make their way through examinations and got their tax agents and practicing licenses and began their firm in 1993. You know, since then, it's been a long journey. They didn't have a background in business. They knew the trade of accounting, but they didn't have a background in business. They didn't necessarily have mentorship and guidance. So throughout my whole life, I would just see them work really, really hard. I wouldn't see them much at all, to be honest. If I wanted to see them, I have to go and hang out at the office. Right. So
That was your playground with playing with staples and pens and paper.
yeah, just staying under their desk, playing on my Game Boy. So
Oh, wow. Great
I
child.
was a bit of a spoiled kid, but that was my world. Accounting is to me is a second home. And I got to see how hard they work throughout the years. And if anything, it put me off of the accounting industry. So it wasn't until, much later and having done an accounting degree, having had exposure to running businesses on my own, when I looked at TMS, I saw that there was actually a lot that could be done there, but I didn't know what it was. And I guess we'll go to that next part. And that's where we met Wize and we met Ed.
Wow. So yeah, that's where I wanted to go. Which year did you come into the equation?
Or to be honest, I've always been part of the TMS
Yeah,
equation.
exactly.
When I
Up
was nine
until
years, I was doing BASs and doing coding reports. And if I
wow.
finish a whole box of coding reports, that's $10. So if I finish 5 boxes, I get $50. And I had $50 from red envelopes. So I could buy Halo 1 on the Xbox.
That's
um,
awesome.
it's always been in and out. I've always just been part of that trade. But officially, I came into this after university in 2017. Just started as an administrator, just helping out in the office. But it's usually from those positions that you see that there is a lot of areas that could be improved.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the knowledge. So I was at an impasse. Either I leave the firm and I go work for another firm to get ideas, then come back to TMS, or there had to be another solution. And that was the solution. We went looking for a mentor and we found Ed. I looked at a lot of different mentors, but
Did you come
I,
across that?
I've always heard of his name growing up. He actually came to visit our first office in Cabramatta. And one of the comments my parents told me that he said to us was, "You overcapitalized on this office." And I didn't understand what that meant, but my parents explained it to me. You put a lot of furniture and fittings, and you've got nice computers. This
So
was
you had really nice computers there.
however which way it was in 1993, right?
Yeah.
So I've always heard of his name growing up. He's always had a reputation of being a business person and not a technician. And that was a controversial path to take back then, but you look at it where it is today. Chananela is where it is, and it's had 20 offices and 160 staff. And TMS was really just a team of technicians running a flat model. When it was time to actually learn from a mentor, I think it made a lot of sense that we hit Ed up, and I had a chance to speak to him for the first time after hearing his name, since I was a kid. And I knew this was the person that had to teach me how to be a business person. And yeah, so I have to really thank him and thank my parents for, working together to give me this opportunity. So
That's amazing. And actually, now that you mentioned that, my next question, that it had to do a lot with the reason that you became a mentor years later. So I wanted to get into that. So you went from being part of the firm, being in the firm, seeing the mistakes your parents were making, from being inspired by that, getting a mentor, which is what most of our Wize mentors done as well. Now you're here, a mentor. What inspired you? How did you start your mentoring journey as well?
sure, when we started working with Ed, I guess there were areas that he was happy with the way we implemented things, impressed with aspects where we were willing to innovate and challenge ourselves, and saw that we had a bit of tenacity in TMS, to implement things. So before I became a mentor, he would just throw inquiries that he was getting from other accounting firms through to me to answer and just test me, I guess. Oh, this person's asking me about practice ignition. You mind talking to them on the phone about it? Oh, this person's asking me about carbon. Do you mind talking to them about it? So I guess through those little moments, it was him being a mentor and building me up to be someone that could actually help others properly within Wize. Thinking about how much efforts and how much wisdom he has given to TMS. We have a fully running team. It's running remotely. We're averaging about 1 to 2 inquiries from our marketing per day. And by May, it should be about 4 or 5 per day. But even before we did the marketing, how he helped build up and advise us in structuring our teams, structuring the roles. And, his advice was always just hold off and trying to grow and add levels, get the foundation right. Otherwise, everything's going to go crumbling down. And even until now, 5 years later, under Ed's mentorship, his lessons are all playing out. I really respect how much and appreciate how much he has helped us. And I also appreciate the fact that when you teach other people, you're forced to distill these ideas and lessons that you have and explain it in a simple way to people. And sometimes people don't understand things the way you've heard it and you understood it. So you have to rephrase it. You have to change the way it's communicated. And that's something that I have to do daily with my own staff. And when I get to work with firm owners and get them to understand those very same concepts, it makes me feel rewarded. It feels rewarding when I can see it doesn't matter if it's an accountant or an administrator that understands the concepts and then performs their role better, or it be an owner or a shareholder that understands these concepts and then are able to get more out of their business. I feel satisfied where I can share knowledge and then people get it and then they do something with it. I guess it's just part of my character or personality that I enjoy doing. So joining Wize Mentoring it felt really natural to me. Teaching people doesn't feel unnatural or uncomfortable to me. And if anything, what I see and practice coaching and mentoring other firms, it in turn makes me a better general manager for my own team and mentor and guide my team the same way I would mentor another owner that we're working with. So, a lot of reasons, but mainly it's a love for teaching. When Ed talks about what an end goal looks like in a firm or a business, what happens when you're past being a senior accountant or a senior client manager? What happens when you're past becoming a chief technical officer or a chief executive officer? At the very end of it is being a chairman to the firm. And what is the role of a chairman? It's telling the CEO to pull their head in at times, but it's really to mentor and guide the firm. So to me, I feel like this is the most valuable skill to practice. And Any wise firms out there who, or firm owners who feel like they have something to teach and have a passion for it, should consider joining and becoming a wise mentor as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I was actually going to ask you. So there was this Thomas who was little Thomas who was seeing their distressed parents working a lot, putting so many hours, doing only technical stuff, being grinders, not using their firm to the fullest, basically.
Right.
So, what would you say to that Thomas who was in the business as well, seeing everything happening? Because there are many Thomases out there that do not
Mhm.
realize that they're in a position that they probably need to change. What would you say to them? What would an advice be?
Just the shortest advice I could give is find a mentor. Like, stop stumbling through the dark by yourself. It's not that you don't have the skills or you don't have the brains or you don't have the character for it. It's just a mentor is a key. It's a key to a solution. You can be great. You can figure things out on your own and go online and learn things. But what a mentor does is they will tell you where you should be looking and what you should be working on because they know and have a taste of what it should be like. So, my very simple advice is just find a mentor. Yes, you're great, you're good, you're an entrepreneur, you can figure things out on your own, but stop stumbling through the dark. That's not how successful people operate. The
Yeah.
very successful people find help, they find experts, they find people who have traveled a path. For example, you could be the greatest fisherman, but if you go to an area you never fished before, you're not going to have success. You're going to have trial and error. You might have a good sense about where you should fish, but that's not going to compare to the level of success you would have if you were to, say, hire a charter to take you around and show you. That's exactly what I would say to little Thomas is find a teacher. I did find a teacher, but if I had to say something to find a teacher earlier, find a business teacher a lot earlier
Yeah.
so you could practice it. That's what I would say to people.
Yeah. From 93 to 2017, they didn't find a teacher, technically. So they spent all that time looking for answers, stressing out, not being home to their kids, which is very, it's not what it should be because you would love to spend time at home and seize every day. If you don't have kids, you have activities, you want to spend time doing other things. I wanted to ask you because you're a mentor now, so you see it from a different optic. So I usually
Sure.
ask in the WizeFactor chat this question, but I wanted to ask you from a different perspective. You work with many mentees, with many firm
Mhm.
owners that you get with them coaching calls, monthly master classes, all of these calls where you speak with them for private conversations, most of them, but you talk to them about the phrase that we have at Wise, that's a staple phrase, that it's build a business that runs without you. How do you feel like they feel about this phrase? Are they excited? Are your mentees scared? Do they feel like it's too far away? Do they feel like they're almost there? How do they feel about that?
Yeah, look, you got people of various characters and stages within their firms. There's a broad spectrum of people. You've got people who understand that concept, and at the same time, they understand that they have to take risk and challenge themselves and do uncomfortable things in order to become a better leader and then implement what we're talking about. These individuals are rare. And the ones that I work with that are like this are very enjoyable to work with because they
Ah.
travel very fast. Okay. You 1 year, they compared to the next year is substantial growth, not just in terms of revenue, but in terms of their team, how the dynamics of their structures change. They are what we would call operators. But
Mm.
you've got a subset of people who want to achieve it, but they can't deal with the discomfort of the changes. And for those individuals, it's not like an intellectual challenge. They get it. They get that you have to build a business that runs without you, not for the only reason just to take holidays or, right? It's a necessity in the business to be able to scale up your time so that you can work on actually growing your business and training people. how could they grow their business if they're trapped within the day-to-day burning fires that are happening? But deep down, they have personal challenges. They have challenges with dealing with people, confrontation. They have challenges with technology. They have challenges with marketing, whatever it might be. They're coming up against things that they can't quite wrap their personality around. And what I have to do with them is I have to educate them that you have to work with people who are complementary to you. Look, if you can't do it, that's fine. You can only change so much. But in saying that, you have to find people for your firm that complement you. And that's really difficult. Oftentimes, this feeling of discomfort comes because they
Yeah.
don't want to give up control over certain areas of their business. And then you have people who are afraid of the idea of withdrawing from their firm.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a discomfort in leading and managing their firms. And I have to say that it's really hard for these individuals to be successful. It's really hard for these individuals to be really successful. If you can't step outside of your comfort zone, if you can't see the intellectual reasoning for why you need to withdraw from their firm, then those individuals sort of have to ask themselves that maybe running a business is not for me, because running a business is not for everyone. Okay. If it was easy, then everyone would do it and everyone would be millionaires. But if certain individuals aren't willing to challenge themselves, make changes, change who they are, and understand why they need to withdraw from their business so that they can go and focus on bigger things, then I have to say those mentees I've worked with in the past who fall into that category, their battles are with themselves. And their battles are probably with the fact that maybe running a business is not for me. The sort of conclusions that we usually end up at after, say, a year and a half or a year of working with them is, I think I'm just going to sell the business. I think I'm just going to get out of this and not handle it anymore. So, what I have to say to these mentees is you kind of have to assess where you sit. Do you have the courage to go and start changing? Do you have the ability to just think and understand how these things need to be implemented? Then if you do, you're going to get a lot out of working with a mentor. And if you understand the reasoning, but you're just struggling personally, you'd still benefit because a mentor can bring the goodness out of you. And I'd say the majority of the mentees I've worked with have fallen into those first two types. Yeah, honestly, there are very few people that come to us and they just can't be helped. And they can only do so much.
Yeah, and it's great that you bring this up. I love everything that you said about this because it's a huge topic. So many people will see this video and it will resonate. You're either one of these. You're either someone who's more open to delegating, more open to letting go of control, more open to building a business that runs without you because you are confident that it doesn't need you, that you've done everything in your hands for it not to need you. And on the other hand, we will run into people who are probably realizing that they need to sell. But even if you need selling, you can tell me better than anyone, Thomas, because you've worked with firms that realize that they want to sell, that they want to bail, that they need to take some steps towards this. They cannot just get everything in a box, lock it down, and just go. There's a way to leave as well, a smart way to leave.
Yeah, the problem is that they're so challenged that they probably couldn't even put the firm together, even with help, to get it into a state where it could be sold. I mean, what I'm saying is there are some people who are just not cut out for it. And to be honest, they probably have a right reason to be scared of withdrawing from their firm. So I know it's tough. Ed said the very same words to me. If you took all the money in the world and distributed it equally amongst people, if you wait long enough, eventually money is going to end up piling up with the very same people. You look at everyone that is born, there are some people who have a natural sense for leadership, and then some people who don't really have a natural sense for leadership, but they can learn it. And then some people who are just not cut out for it. So, what I have to say to individuals is when you come to Wize or when you want to work with a mentor, what you're really asking for is you're asking to be taught leadership. and you're looking for an environment where you can be in the presence and be part of a group of other great leaders and then learn from them. But you need to be humble. You need to be able to soak up what you're seeing. It's part of being a business owner, of course, means having confidence in yourself. But sometimes this confidence can come out in arrogance. And when you're arrogant and you don't actually have the tools or the knowledge to pull it off and not the leadership to pull it off, then it's very hard to help those individuals. But the majority of my experiences have been with people who want to change, who
Yeah.
want to do better. That's why they even come to Wize in the first place.
That's the Wize factor. That's exactly what we talk about in this space, because these are people who really come to us and they're extraordinary. They might be lost, but what they know is that they want and need to change for a better life, for withdrawing from the business, even if they are not thinking about that and just want free weekends, they are welcome. I wanted to ask you our last question to close up this amazing conversation, and it is, do you have any hobbies, or do you have any activities that you like to dedicate your free time to? I know one that's going to happen soon, and that's probably changing diapers, because as we speak, Thomas is soon to have a baby. So that's probably going to be one of your favorite activities, whether or not.
Yeah, I can't wait because, actually, when I was 15, my sister was born. So I had a bit of experience changing diapers then, but I can't even compare that because that's not being a parent. So
Yeah, you could
my hobby's been
you could just
shopping on
grab the
Facebook
baby
Marketplace.
and say, "Mom."
Nah, that's, part of being a Wize mentor is freeing up my time. I don't work on my Thursdays and Fridays because I want to be a dad. And that's something that I saw in my mentees, that if it was a common thing that they all wish they had done, which it was to have more time for their children. And so I thought, why don't I just live that dream now? Why don't I just set my time up now and manage it better so that I can be a dad on Thursdays and Fridays? I'm not going to be that sort of person that goes, oh, I make the money, you go look after it.
Yeah,
I actually want a good, decent role in my daughter's life, my daughter Naomi's life. And that's something that I have to balance with my hobbies, which was what you were asking for. And
yeah,
I'm an avid fisherman. I love fishing. I
that
fish on the
was
rock.
why you brought
Yeah.
up the fishing reference.
I always draw a lot of analogies from these hobbies, right? It's fishing, and very recently it's been mountain biking. So
Nice.
just those two activities gets me outdoors. It feels cool to load up your gear in the back of the car and go out, travel for an hour and a half to a location. But that has to be changed because my priorities are now on being a father. I have to run my firm well. I have to make sure that it's ticking along. Leads are coming in, client managers are seeing them, managing them, production managers are doing their job, accountants are processing through the work. The Fab 5 KPI is ticking along. And that's really what gives me my freedom. If I can see the performance through the Fab 5, then like Ed and Jamie have talked and shared numerous times, you could be on holiday, you could be on a yacht somewhere, and if you can see your Fab 5, at least it gives you a peace of mind that everything's running right.
Yeah.
So that's my challenge as a Wize mentor. I have to live what I teach,
Mhm.
and I'll know I'm living what I'm teaching if I can see it through my Fab 5 that the team is running well. And that will give me time to spend and dedicate to my family.
Exactly. I love that. Love the all the hype. And I hope that when this is published, Naomi is home, safe, not crying a lot. Hope you can get some sleep, but it will be awesome.
It will
So
be awesome.
thank you, Thomas, for taking the time for talking to me
Thank you,
today.
Claudia.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I will be seeing you around for sure. Hope everyone enjoys
Thank
their
you, Claudia. All right, see you around.